Hello. I wanted to talk today about getting through drawing failures, and it's something that people who are starting drawing are really going to suffer through. I hate to say, because it can be very difficult to even draw a line, not even thinking of the line that you want to draw, let alone any type of line, whether that be a straight one, an S curve, a C curve, or even an ellipse. I've said this in other videos, but I do recommend you structure a practice routine for yourself, as it could be extremely beneficial and it all adds up to your experience over time. The one main thing to get through is to know that you can get better, but it takes an extreme amount of practice, and I'm not going to lie. And even when you have that really great large amount of practice, you still are occasionally going to uh, totally mess up a drawing, or you may be doing a drawing, you may be doing it for a long time, and you may not like the end result, or you may not like it in the time being, but when you step back to it in the future, you'll really like it. I do suggest that you keep your older works with you in some way, whether you draw on physical paper or if you're doing digital. It could be a good way to benchmark your progress. But you should know that, like, when it comes to muscle memory things like drawing, uh, progress isn't like straightforward. I know a lot of people like think that progress, in a sense, is like an experience bar, if you know what that is. But like everyone thinking that, oh, if I do this, I'll become exactly better. And the sad fact is that you may get better, but sometimes, like when you're really starting out, you'll have like spurts of being better, and then maybe the next day you'll lose it. But like it's with you, it's in you, but it's like you have to reactivate that portion of your brain to really get in the flow. And I think starting out, it's incredibly important just to do a ton of drawing and trying to look for your mistakes and trying to correct them to the best of your ability, even though you may really lack the muscle memory to do that. I mean, even though I've been drawing for quite a couple years now, I still do lack muscle memory in certain things, but I have been pretty pleased with my progress. I have realized that sometimes I can make cool things, and I find it like really cool that it's like uh, everything I've been trying to do is finally paying off a little, but immediately I'm always trying to keep myself in check, and that there's always something else that I could try to improve myself in. And I think that like I'm not at a high level. Like I still need a lot more practice, like a ton of practice. Like I can never get in enough practice. There aren't enough hours in a day to do it. But I do recommend that you just keep trying to go along with it. Don't give up. It could be beneficial to get feedback from others. Uh, I think the other thing that can be confusing is like what to draw, uh, or like if you want to get better at one thing, like let's say a trash bin. If you want to get better at trash bins, you do want to draw them from like a bunch of different angles and perspectives to gain an understanding of them. But the important thing is you may want to focus on just one perspective for now. So I'm going to draw it for you here as a simple example. Let me try that again. It's also beneficial to ghost your lines before you draw. I highly recommend that. But the important thing is, if you are starting out, I do recommend trying to draw the same thing in the same perspective that you're trying to improve in before maybe moving on to a different perspective, because I have a lot to work on with that. And if I was to, say, do it again, I would want to draw it again to the side. Kind of, some people may call it grinding. Um, I always wondered where the term came from, but I always think of it from video games, in the sense that you're trying to get something, but to do it you have to do a repetitive action again and again. And in this case, our repetitive action would be trying to draw this trash bin. And for every object that you draw, there's always different challenges for it. And I think that if you want to get better at drawing one thing, sometimes you may have to iterate, and you have to always accept that there are going to be failures with what you're going to draw. You can't let that mindset eat you, because if you're so concerned with failing, you'll never be able to even draw a line. It kind of just gets in your way. It's more that failure is progress rather than just doing it good right off the bat. Like, yeah, I guess you could call that progress, but I mean, you know, it's one of those things that, like, all of your failures accumulate. So it's like all failures. If I was to say, would I be doing this right? If I'm doing that right, I'm thinking like the summation of all your failures. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but like think of it as like probably the saying, the summation of all your failures will get you somewhere closer towards your goal of progress. So the funny thing is, sometimes I would have success at drawing the things I wanted to draw, all for myself to come back to it perhaps a week or a day, a week, a year later, and to say, wow, that was a failure. But like the thing is, sometimes it's good to be in the mindset that you can see improvement like that, and you could acknowledge it, and to know that it was a failure at one time, or it was a success at one time, and then it kind of became a failure with the more experience you got. But it's very important for you to have a positive attitude. I would not be negative about it. I also recommend doing it for the love of drawing. I think a lot of people really neglect the importance of the simple lines, which I like to call the atoms. I did that, maybe I erased it. But, the simple atoms I've always thought are straight lines, S curves are a variation, C curves are a variation, and ellipses. And then you get into like the other realm of like shapes and whatnot. Like you can do like a bean shape or something like that. But I think really focusing on line quality could be extremely important as an exercise in its own, because a lot of these shapes you may struggle with drawing anything until you could have a little bit of confidence drawing the atoms. It's kind of like learning the basics in chemistry before you move on to compounds and balancing formulas and whatnot, and working with like orbitals and all of that. And so it's one of those things, like it all really builds upon it. And I am going to say, even though you may not be able to draw the initial atoms and you want to draw objects, I would highly recommend that you try to do it. Like, try to draw what you can draw, even though you know you may fail, but try to go in the mindset of you're just drawing it and like you're not thinking of failure. Don't let failure be the clog in your ability to draw at all. So that is important to keep in the back of your head and not let it out. There are some other things, like, on this channel I mostly focus on construction, but I do want to focus on doing more value studies, and I feel like certain other things, just because you're good at construction doesn't mean you're going to be good at doing value studies, because a lot of value studies have to do with what I call surface construction, and dealing with light and shade. And, a lot of these things, like, just because you're good at one thing doesn't mean you're going to be good at the other thing. So there's a lot to really keep in mind. Like, you may be having success, which is great, but there's always something else you could be working on to improve yourself. But don't let that overwhelm you. I would say failure not being failure, but more of the grind towards success. But yeah, those are the main things that I wanted to talk about. The other thing is deciding what to iterate. I do recommend that you draw stuff that interests you. I think being interested in the subject material at hand uh, does really pull you along. So if you like flowers, draw flowers. If you like, well, just draw stuff that you like. But do you know that like certain other things may fall into the realm of gesture? And I never really covered gesture because I mostly talk about construction, but I definitely do feel like I should delve more into gesture because there's like construction, which is focused on how things are made, and like gesture is more of the emotional flow of things. If I was to summarize it real quick, if you had a ball, well, the gesture of a ball would be like a ball, or if you had, it's going to be difficult for me to explain this, but just know that like I will cover that in another video. And if you do have a question about drawing failure, please ask below and I could try to answer it to the best of my ability. If you're wondering about something, seeing progress takes many, many years, I hate to say, but I think that's what really makes it all worth it. It's like, it feels more like a trade, even though you may not be making money at it immediately, or even if that's your goal at all. But it's one of those things that takes a lot of experience. I mean, I would put it right up there next to learning to write or read. It's a very difficult skill, but definitely worthwhile for all of the applications that it can be used for, especially for art. So yeah, if you have a question, leave it in the comments. If you like my channel, please subscribe. And or if you'd rather ask a question through my email, you could always email me. Thanks for listening to this video. If you like it, please like it via YouTube. Thanks, and have a great day. Bye.